Hi there, welcome. This is the Kelly's Astrology podcast, where you can find insight, guidance, and understanding through astrology. I'm Kelly, and I'll be your host. Hey there, everyone, and welcome to another show. This week, I'll be taking a look at the astrology of the week starting November 18. Now, this week, we have got a couple of really unusual astrology events happening. On Saturday, November 18, there will be a special and rare aspect involving Mars in Scorpio. A few days after that, the sun is going to move into Sagittarius, and that is going to activate what I consider one of the most strongly Jupiter-themed periods of the year. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what this can mean and how it weirdly seems to align with the late November shopping frenzy. Before I get into this week's Astro Insights, I wanted to share the details about my own Black Friday sale, including the code that you can use to save. I do run a big sale once a year with discounts on almost every course and class. During the Black Friday sale, you can save 20% on astrology courses and webinars. My Black Friday sale runs, probably like most others you're hearing about, from November 24th through to November 27th. And to save that 20%, I want you to use the code RADIANCE20 when you check out. So that is a special code we've put together for you as a podcast listener. So that discount applies to most of my online offerings, but do note that things like in-person workshops, my membership, and private consults don't form part of the sale. But if you're interested in catching up on any astrology webinars or classes that you might have missed this year, maybe you've just learned about me and you're wanting to get a taste of my teaching style, or maybe there's a particular topic in astrology that you want to learn a little bit more about, pop over to kellysastrology.com. There is a huge catalog of astrology classes that I have taught over the years, and they will all be 20% off November 24th through to November 27th. So that code to use to save is RADIANCE20. All right, so now with all that said, let's get back to this week's astrology. So Mars is going into a special aspect known as a cazimi, and that is going to happen on November 18. Now, this is a special aspect that planets can only make with the sun. So the technical phrasing might be that Mars will cazimi the sun on November 18. So this unusual aspect will emphasize and intensify the power of Mars. Mars meets the sun like this in going into this cazimi place once every 2 years. And the signs that the cazimi Mars is making with the sun happen in will change. So on November 18, we have Mars cazimi the sun, which happens every 2 years. But what's a unique feature about Mars cazimi the sun in 2023 is that Mars is cazimi the sun while in Scorpio, one of Mars's home signs. So this unification between the sun and Mars puts Mars into a state of initiation, if you like. It's almost like as Mars has gotten closer to the sun, it has been crossing a threshold into a place of both mystery and power, like coming into sort of a sacred chamber or a sacred place. And when Mars goes into this cazimi condition, it is reborn and re-energized for a new 2-year cycle. So there's some technical elements and there is some meaningful elements that we take from this. So as Mars has come into the heart of the sun, which is one of the meanings of this cazimi phrasing or experience. So Mars is in the heart of the sun in this sacred chamber and really getting his sense of his mission statement around the goals and the challenges that Mars is going to focus on moving forward. And each of us everyone listening, you out there in podcast land, you are a little bit like Mars this weekend. In one or another of the areas of your life, you are undergoing a rebirth. So if Mars is Cazimi, the sun, we can certainly interpret some general statements for the collective, but I also want you to really think about this from the personal piece, that Mars is Cazimi, the sun in Scorpio. And so the Scorpio part of your birth chart, I want you to look at the house where you have Scorpio in your chart. Those house topics are where you are going through a very special and very rare rebirth. You might be sort of connecting with new projects, passions are being imprinted inside of you. And you might also be bringing some of your past undertakings to a close. So this Mars Cazimi, the sun in Scorpio, it is renewal, it is rebirth. And that means there are also some endings. If we're rebirthing or refocusing or renewing our energies or clarifying our goals, we are maybe setting aside some things that have been a priority for the last 2 years. So this piece about Mars Cazimi, the sun, it is an aspect of purification. So what that means is baggage, pain, anything that is stagnant or toxic, particularly if it's tied to the past, or maybe it's just something that's become really congested in your life. There is this burning away, the purification of the fire of the sun, so that all of that excess is burned away and we just have the kind of essential raw essence left. So when we talk about Mars Cazimi, the sun, we're also talking about releasing, the letting go, the burning away, the purifying. And when it's Mars, maybe we're purifying the way we handle anger. We're not getting rid of anger, but maybe we're getting some insights as to where our anger comes from, the roots of it or the source of it. Maybe we're learning about an agency and assertiveness, which are also Mars things. Maybe we're learning about independence and autonomy. And so this idea of the purification, we are maybe updating our habits around some of these topics, anger, assertiveness, that type of thing. You might think about this Mars Cazimi as a really intense or extreme type of decluttering. Mars is going through this major purification process. And so something similar for each of us in our own lives, a major purification process about Mars things and about the topics of the Scorpio part of our chart. Mars Cazimi, the sun, is definitely a powerful day for initiation and new beginnings. So it is ultimately a cycle of reset, of starting, beginning, taking those first steps. And so you might find that you can actually change an old habit or shift your attitudes and behaviors in a really dramatic or permanent way. So permanent changes, big breakthroughs, even maybe an exciting beginning. Like a new chapter, a new challenge, a new goal to focus on. When Mars or any other planet is in this Cazimi, the sun position, they're also getting a lot of wisdom. So we're sort of getting connected to something that is really at the heart or the essence of who you are. You're getting straight to the heart of something, that sort of bullseye energy of Mars. So this Cazimi aspect is a very special and unique type of a conjunction. It can only happen when a visible planet unites or makes a conjunction with the sun. So a Cazimi you might think of as a special type of a conjunction that only happens with the sun. Now, there are two technical definitions of Cazimi. One, the older definition from the Hellenistic or ancient Greek period in astrology, describes a planet that is within a degree either side of the sun as being Cazimi. In the medieval period, a little bit more recently, but still, old compared to modern times, this window was shortened to a planet being within 17 minutes of the sun. Now, when a planet is Cazimi, like Mars is this weekend, we're really thinking about this planet as being in the heart of the sun or being in the embrace of the sun. Now, the sun is both a symbol for supreme power, like a royal figurehead, a leader. The sun is often said to represent the king, the queen, that sort of top of the pyramid person with power and influence. But the sun is also the ultimate source of divine wisdom. And so when a planet like Mars goes Cazimi the sun, it is said to be in the heart of the king, in the embrace of the king, to be influencing the king. So that the sun, which represents this sort of emanating energy that affects just about everything, has a very Mars or Martian tone. The other side of it, if we turn it around, Mars being with the ultimate source of wisdom, of divine and revealed knowledge, Mars is also having access to knowledge. Like that sacred chamber is where all the really powerful secrets about mysteries and magic are held. And Mars has a very special opportunity to be in that place, that central place of mystery, of magic, but also of power for a period of time. So a planet that is Cazimi is protected by its association with the king and is also, or the sun, protected by its proximity to the sun and is also able to strongly influence events and matters. So another way to think about this is that we're in a very Marsy time right now. Mars, Cazimi the sun, November 18. The Cazimi only lasts for a couple of days. So that's sort of an intensity of the Mars energy around that November 18th time. So Mars, Cazimi the sun, strongly influencing events, and it's very much Mars in Scorpio themes that are coming through. So Mars in Scorpio themes would be things like strategy, tactics, long-range plans. You know, Mars in Scorpio, this is the night home or the night sign of Mars. And Mars is at his most calculated and most strategic and most determined in Scorpio. The other sign of Mars, Aries, the day sign of Mars, Mars is a little bit more impulsive, a little bit more short-term focused in Aries. In Scorpio, Mars is playing the long game. This is a fixed water sign. So the strategy and the tactics are not just what am I doing this weekend? It's how am I channeling my energy and my life force? How am I connecting to my wisdom and my power so that I can stay the course of a particular thing that I want to make a focus over the next 2 years. So when we're talking about Mars in Scorpio, we've got that long range focus, we've got intensity of action, we've got real determination, like the idea of not giving up or not letting go. We've also got a really extreme energy around battles or disagreements. You know, Mars, of course, is the planet associated with war, with military, and Mars in Scorpio is like, I'm here to see my mission fulfilled. This isn't a quick thing with Mars in Scorpio. It is an undertaking in a much longer battle plan, if you like. And so with any disagreements, with any differences of opinions that you're engaged in, that are going on at the moment in the world, you know, there is this sense of maybe people are very entrenched in their point of view or their side. So if you're negotiating with someone, you know, in your everyday life, it's a little bit tricky to come to an agreement when there is this sense of, you know, you're sort of stubbornly holding to your point of view and the other person is really stubbornly kind of in their place as well. So there's a bit of a stuckness, like a stalemate almost type of energy with this Mars, Cazimi the sun. Now, when we think about this from a personal level too, Mars, Cazimi the sun is also a planet, or it's an aspect, I should say, where we're really thinking about independence and autonomy. We're really thinking about what's right for me. What do I want out of a situation? And so if you are in a situation with someone in your everyday life where you maybe haven't been assertive or vocal about what it is that is right for you, you might find you're willing to do this under the Mars Cazimi on the 18th. So there is something about this sort of independent action. You know, you're doing things for your own progress or to create movement and momentum for yourself. So one of the other ways I was thinking about how we could all be like tuning into this energy is to thinking about this Mars Cazimi as a time to change your actions, you know, the things that you do that are either taking you towards or away from what you want. Doing and wanting are very Mars things. So what you do and how it gets you closer to what you want is really in focus. You might be ready to begin a new or really important undertaking, like starting a new project or a new routine or beginning a new habit. It's really time to set your sights on this next 2 years. Think about this Mars Cazimi on November 18 as sort of what do I want to be the through line or the guiding arrow of my actions for the next 2 years until November of 2025, really thinking about that. So thinking about what you want to do and what you want to make happen and what your kind of game plan is to be successful in that longer term, sort of medium term goal. If you are interested to learn more about these special conjunctions with the sun, I focused on the Mars Cazimi this week because that is very timely for this week starting November 18 in November. But there are 2 other types of conjunctions with the sun that involve things like combustion or under the beams. And if that's something you want to learn more about, I do have a webinar class called Purification and Power, which explores those 3 different types of conjunctions with the sun, what they are and what it might look like or mean if you have one of those in the birth chart. So I'll link to that in the show notes below. So that's a little bit about the Mars Cazimi this week. I imagine if you're a enthusiastic consumer of astrology content, you'll be hearing a lot about that this week. It is a very striking, very notable thing, Mars going Cazimi, which just happens once every 2 years, but it's really sharp and it's really strategic and it's really deep and it's really secretive because this Cazimi of Mars is in Scorpio. So you might really get into the secret chamber of yourself. You might get into the secret chamber of a special relationship that you're involved in. You might also get some clarity around deeper motivations, the real driving force or compelling passions that are moving you forward through life or are moving those close to you forward through life. So that is Mars Cazimi, November 18. Let me know how you're experiencing that in the comment section below. I always love to hear how each of us is navigating the different astrological energies. But I do have something else I want to share today, and it's totally different. So we're going to switch focus now and take a look very briefly at the Sun and Mars changing signs this week. So on November 22nd, the sun moves into Sagittarius. We end Scorpio season for the year and we begin Sagittarius season. A couple of days later, on the 24th, Mars moves into Sagittarius as well. So the sun coming into Sag really is the start of Sagittarius season, and that is often a lively, busy, and active 4-week period. We do have the sun in Sag every year, obviously. And Sagittarius is the most wild, free, and unbound, uncontained of all the zodiac signs of all the signs in the zodiac. It is our fire sign ruled by Jupiter. And so during this 4-week period of Sag season, you too might feel like splashing out. You might feel like ignoring routine. You might want to forget your limits in the next few weeks. Since Mars is joining the sun in Sagittarius this year, there is an extra level of energy and enthusiasm for going all out on the things that mean the most to you. There's also an especially impulsive and spontaneous quality to Sagittarius season in 2023, and that is thanks to Mars with the sun in Sagittarius. So we always have the sun in Sagittarius at this time of year. We don't always have Mars there as well. So that combination is like double Sag, double energy, peak enthusiasm, but it really enhances that wildness as well. Okay, so that's a little bit about the sun and Mars changing signs, but here's where I want to share something different. A few years ago, I think it was when we were actually living overseas in Belgium, in Europe, I really sort of was tuning into this idea of the shopping frenzy that happens at the end of November, between Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and all of the, Small Business Saturday, all of these types of retail events, if you like. And it's sort of been an interesting thing for me to learn about, observe, be a part of, because, in Australia, where I'm originally from, we don't celebrate Thanksgiving. And when I grew up, we didn't have any of these sort of big things going on at the end of November. We didn't have a celebration and we didn't have any shopping that seemed to be all kind of linked together. And so I was really starting to wonder a little bit about what's kind of going on astrologically that seems to correlate maybe with a known thing in the retail sales business world, which is that, in the retail space, our businesses often do the majority of their annual sales in this November, December period. So for many businesses, small businesses and large businesses, they really focus on this time of year because they can make enough money in their sales and their offerings to sustain them at other quieter periods of the year. And I just started to wonder, why is that? It's a very common thing as an astrologer, like, why do we do this thing at this time? What is there something behind that? And so I got to wondering, what is it about the sun in Sagittarius? What is it about the sun maybe in early Sag that has to do with, or maybe is some sort of I don't know, I don't want to say cause and effect, because obviously we've lived a lot longer than we've had this very kind of modern shopping frenzy, but somehow might describe or perhaps represent what's going on there. And so to help me understand this, I looked into something that's a little bit more technical, which is the terms or bounds of the zodiac signs. So if you haven't heard of these, the terms or the bounds of the signs are these little subdivisions in each zodiac sign that are unequal or varying in size. So the terms or the bounds of each zodiac sign are connected to one of the 5 visible planets. So not the sun or moon, but the other 5 visible planets like Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. So what that means is in every sign, but I'll use Sagittarius as an example because that's where we are now. In every zodiac sign like Sag, there is a little part of Sag that has the terms or bounds of Venus. So we're in Sag, but we have a little Venusian part of Sag. And there's another part of Sag that has the Mars terms. So it's a little bit of a more Marsy type part of Sagittarius. And there is also a Mercury part of Sag and a Saturn part of Sag, and there's a Jupiter part of Sag. And so I'm going to talk a little bit more about the specific term section of Sagittarius. But if you want to learn more about the terms as a technique and, in terms of how to use them, I do teach about them in 2 of the classes in my program, and I'll link to these in the show notes below. If you can't wait for that, one of the classes is the chart interpretation course on the planets. It's the first of the chart interpretation courses where you're learning about the planets, but you also learn about the terms as part of that. So if we think about Sagittarius, we're starting Sag season this week, November 22nd, and the whole sign of Sag is ruled by Jupiter. So the primary planet that influences Sagittarius is Jupiter. We're not changing that. We're just adding this like subtle extra influence, like a spice. If you're making a chocolate cake, you're putting a bit of cinnamon in it, you're putting a bit of ginger, you're putting a bit of chili. It's still a chocolate cake, but it's subtly different depending on what little extra you add. That's a very simple, very basic way to think about the terms if this is a new concept for you. So Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. It's one of 2 signs ruled by Jupiter. The other sign is Pisces. So straight away, we get this sense of like the different ways planets influence signs. So in Sag, we have the more outgoing, expressive version of Jupiter. We have a very outward-oriented, very active version of Jupiter. Sagittarius is the day sign of Jupiter, whereas Pisces is the night sign of Jupiter. So in Pisces, we get a quieter, more sort of internally oriented version of Jupiter. So Jupiter's expansion is more about inner growth or maybe feelings and mood and emotion in Pisces. Whereas in Sagittarius, Jupiter's expansive energies are really bold and outward, expressed outward. So they're the signs of Jupiter, and each of those signs, Sagittarius and Pisces, does have a part of it where it's also the terms of Jupiter. So there is like a super-duper Jupiter part of Pisces, and there is a super-duper part of super-duper Jupiter part of Sagittarius. Now, the super-duper Jupiter parts in Pisces and in Sag are different because of the tone of the signs. So the super-Jupiter part of Pisces is kind of the middle part of Pisces, and it's very Jupiter, but in a really emotionally healing, expansive, connective way. The super-Jupiter part of Sag is the most outward, loud, bold part of Jupiter. Part of Sag, and I think it's the Jupiter terms in Sagittarius are the most bold, in your face Jupiter part of the whole zodiac. That's one way to think about it. That's how I've been thinking about it. So the first part of Sagittarius is the part of Sag that holds the terms of Jupiter. So the terms of Jupiter in Sagittarius run from 0 degrees, 0 minutes to 11 degrees, 59 minutes. Now, technically that is known as from the 1st to the 12th degree, but it does end at 11 degrees, 59 minutes. So that's an important thing to note. So each year, the sun in Sagittarius is in the terms of Jupiter from the moment it comes into Sagittarius around November 22nd until about December 4, when it moves into that 13th degree of Sag. When it hits 12 degrees, 0 minutes of Sag, when the sun hits that part of Sag, it is out of the part of Sag that is the terms of Jupiter. This is a little technical. Some of you might be thinking, I'm not sure that I'm really that interested. That's okay. I know some of you will be thinking, oh my gosh, I love learning about new things in astrology. So this sun moving through the terms of Jupiter in Sagittarius, this is the time when we have these kind of major retail sales events. And that's when we've got this sort of almost like a frenzy of shopping. Now, so the super Jupiter part of Sagittarius, part of the zodiac, the timeline is about November 22nd to December 4th each year. Now, there are lots of ways that this super Jupiter energy can show up. It can be about things like travel, movement, adventure, and discovery. It could also be about planning for the future, like clarifying your goals or visualizing your dreams for what you want to explore going forward. It could also be about learning and teaching and wisdom pursuits, mentoring. It could also be about generosity, which is a huge Jupiter concept. So the idea of giving or sharing whatever you have in abundance. And it can also be about accumulation, shopping, and the idea of adding, growing collections or building more, creating more things. So I'm not saying that the only way this super Jupiter period in Sag can show up is through shopping and spending. There are lots of other options that we can put our energy into. It's just more of an interesting observation to see this shopping piece go on when we have this heightened or intensified Jupiter energy each year. So what's also sort of come about, I guess, also in more recent years, perhaps, has been the idea that this late November, early December period is a time when more of us might be traveling or visiting, hosting. We might be shopping and spending. Sometimes the shopping is for ourselves. Maybe you need a new washing machine and you're hoping to get it at a really good price. Maybe you are shopping from the perspective of buying a gift or something that you will give to someone else. So we have this super Jupiter theme that does happen annually each year from around November 22nd to December 4th. And that is when the sun is in the sign of Sagittarius ruled by Jupiter, but specifically in the terms or bounds of Jupiter in that already strong Jupiter sign of Sag. Now, that annual theme does get a little bit of a yearly tweak to it, if you like, and that comes from Jupiter itself. So in 2023, this super Jupiter Sag period is going to be influenced by Jupiter in Taurus. So whatever sign Jupiter is moving through each year is going to weigh in on this super Jupiter period. I'm hoping I'm not tripping over my words here because that is a little bit of a tongue twister. So this year, 2023, Super Jupiter period, Sun in Sag in the terms of Jupiter. That is going to be guided by Jupiter in Taurus. Now, this is going to slow things down because Jupiter in Taurus is a planner and a plotter. So with this particular Super Jupiter period in 23 that has the Jupiter in Taurus tone to it, things like sustainability might be highlighted. It might be that you're thinking about sustainability in terms of travel or shopping, or if you're hosting friends or family. It might also highlight handmade things, crafts, artisan type work. And that might be a feature this year. So maybe you're deciding to make things, a batch of cookies, you're knitting something. They could be other, they might be choices that you're considering rather than store-bought options. Jupiter in Taurus does have like a simple quality over quantity for sure, but it does have that natural sustainability and a little bit of that handmade tone to it. Jupiter in Taurus also has a focus on food. And I know in Canada, there's been a lot of information coming out lately about how food banks are running really low on supplies as more and more people are requiring their support based on, increases with interest rates and inflation and cost of living and things. So if you're someone who in this Super Jupiter period each year is often focused on generosity, it may be that supporting food services like a local food bank could be the thing to really go for this year based on Jupiter being in Taurus. So I just wanted to share some of those ideas with you. See if they resonate, see if they're interesting, see if they help you make a little bit of meaning or even guide some of your choices at this time of year. Maybe this time of year is often when you are planning for the future, or, maybe you're thinking, what adventures do I want to have next year? Or how do I want to grow in the next 12 months? Maybe you're realizing you want to add a little bit more, perhaps meaning or magic to your own life. And you're thinking about your own growth, your own personal expansion journey. These are all wonderful ways to tune into this Super Jupiter energy at this time of year. As an astrologer, I'm often thinking about, what we do, why do we do it, and particularly about why do we do things when we do them. And so really exploring this in the concept, exploring this concept of the terms of Jupiter and Sagittarius has been really helpful for me to understand some of the things that have become a real focus in this late November, early December period each year. For me personally, some of my favorite expressions of Jupiter are in that personal growth, learning, healing, making meaning space. And so, for us from gift giving, I'm from a family of readers, my family of origin, the family that I've created, we're all book lovers. So books and learning are a huge part of what we focus on if we are gift giving. So yeah, love to hear how you are tuning into these themes each year. This is a couple of very different astrological themes to explore for this week starting November 18. As always, though, let me know how these influences are showing up for you in the comments below. If you did want to expand your soul and learn more about yourself, your loved ones, all the while adding a little magic to your life, you are most welcome to save on your astrology studies with my Black Friday code Radiance20, which will be active on the website from November 24th to November 27th. Pop over to kellysastrology.com to take advantage of that. Thanks so much for listening again, everyone. I really appreciate so many of you joining me each week. I hope you have some great insights with the Mars Cazimi this week, and I'll be back to share more again next week. Until then, take care.